So moving on to our next story, which is Power Morphicon related, just like our next story, and I can assure you right now, I won't even give away what our next story is just yet, but I can tell you that both are a doozy. So, first story is the Power Morphicon Express. What is Power Morphicon Express? Well, Power Morphicon announced Power Morphicon Express. If you don't know, this is not the newest piece of news, but I want to talk about this because it does tie into the next piece. So, Power Morphicon Express. What is it, and why does it have the opportunity to be terrible? So I don't know about you guys. I wasn't at this year's Power Morphicon. Maybe you were. If you were, sound off in the comment section down below because I'd love to hear your horror stories. I'm sorry that they were horror stories, but I'd love to hear them regardless. And the reason why I want to hear them is because I was seeing other people's horror stories on Twitter, if you guys didn't see them, and there was a lot of problems going on this year. And it's frustrating too because this was the year you would think they would dress to impress because, of course, we had Hasbro coming in, their first year coming in, you would think, oh, you want to impress the big wigs, it's the first year with them. No, apparently. First impressions can be terrible indeed. So, what ended up happening was, if you guys didn't see it on Twitter, there were people waiting online for hours and hours and hours because apparently staff hadn't actually stapled the care packages or the packets. But essentially here's where this is, here's where that is, here's when this is going on. All that stuff wasn't stapled beforehand because that's how cons operate. Sarcasm. They don't. So they don't operate that way. And because of that, people who paid extra money to be in VIP lines to get in earlier, which, look, you want to come at it from an anti-bourgeoisie, anti-1%, everyone should be getting it at the same time. You can come at it from that direction if you want to. But remember, they paid for it regardless, so they should be getting in sooner. And also another thing, too, is that even if you think, everyone should get it at the same time, well, the point, though, is that some people who may have had extra money to burn, we don't know, right? I don't know who has extra money to burn, who doesn't have money to burn. They couldn't get in and see the dealers. So the dealers are losing money regardless due to gaffes like this. And that wasn't, you might be thinking, well, look, waiting online for 5 hours, that sucks. That could have been the only gaffe that day. And again, this isn't Power Morphicon Express, this is Power Morphicon 2018. This is before they announced the Express thing going on, right? So you might be thinking, okay, that 5 hour thing sucks, and if you paid more to get in earlier, it does suck if you have to get in after other people who paid, a lesser price for their ticket, standard ticket, things like that. Okay, right? You might be thinking that's it, right? Wrong. So apparently there was some miscommunication between the staff that worked security, the staff that worked audio-visual stuff, and with the Power Morphicon staff themselves. So also remember, these places do get rented out, and also I think there's some work being done from what I remember hearing. So part of the center that they were rented, I don't know what mall they rented, but part of that was closed off due to construction. What can you do, right? But here's the issue, though, is that because of that miscommunication between this triangle, I'm going to be very polite here, this triangle of fuckery. So I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying to clean up my act for the podcast. This triangle of fuckery. And what ended up happening was, so security was telling people they couldn't come back into the building after a certain time, which meant that the Power Rangers, it wasn't the Power Rangers, I think it was the Power Morphicon prom, which there's nothing wrong with proms, it just doesn't sound right. I don't know why, but it just doesn't sound right to me. I'm not trying to shit on you for going to the prom, more power to you, I'm hoping it went well. It just sounds weird to say Power Morphicon prom. Or any kind of prom, also because I'm not a teenager, so that's kind of why. Maybe if I was a teenager, I'd be like, yeah, let's go back to the prom. But also thinking about my prom, I went to a few different proms, and I was like, I'm okay with never going to one of those again. Anywho, the point is that the Power Morphicon prom, as well as the LGBTQ plus panel, those were, at one point, they were supposed to go on, I believe, at 10:30, and both at the same time. And what ended up happening was, because people weren't going to be let in into the building until Power Morphicon staff had to talk to them and be like, hey, so we may have forgotten to mention something. It's like, yeah, you did. Because those two panels, or that panel and the actual prom, could have not happened That would have been freaking great, wouldn't it? Because they were scheduled to go at 10:30. They even had to go a little bit later, I think, than usual, because of the. No, they didn't have to go later because of the 5-hour line wait. That sucked, but they still were able to go on time, if not for some people not being let back into the building. So that's again a great thing. And even though they were let back into the building because Power Morphicon staff was like, "Hey, can we try to make this work?" At the same time, though, the audiovisual peeps left. So that means the LGBTQ plus panel didn't have microphones, which is like, yay! Isn't that excellent? And it's just really frustrating because it's just like, why? Why do you want any? It's just like, guys, could you just not? Can you just not? Because I don't know. And also, by the way, because here's another thing too, right? Because security didn't want people going into the building after a certain time, they had to put them right next to the prom. So they're right next to the prom. They're blasting, I don't know, some variation of Go Go Power Rangers, I would imagine. And then we have the LGBTQ plus prom, the panel rather, trying to be like, yeah, so we're gonna talk about everything we love in this franchise. But like with no microphones whatsoever, because again, all the audiovisual guys left with all their equipment. And then, speaking of the dealers that I mentioned earlier, because people can't walk the panel floor, because again, Power Morphicon staff didn't talk to the security staff properly, now they're making less money. So if I was a dealer for Power Morphicon 2018, I wouldn't be for 2019, and I wouldn't be for Express either. And that's kind of where my frustration comes into this. This idea that, I'm granted, obviously they had the Power Morphicon Express thing planned for a while now. It didn't just come out. They didn't sit back and go, you know what, this con was run so well that we're going to do this. No, they clearly were going to mention this regardless. But it's just frustrating because if you don't, again, now let's explain what Power Morphicon Express actually is. So apparently if you thought it was if you thought, wow, they really, screwed up this con in Anaheim, California. Can they screw this up in my neck of the woods? Well, don't worry, because Power Morphicon Express is going to your neck of the woods to screw things up. So they'll be in Pasadena, Texas, 2019. And apparently they're going around the U.S. I don't remember where else they're going as of right now. They had a schedule up, but their first stop, because again, they want to take this screw up, nationwide. And the first stop is going to be, let's see, Jason David Frank will be there, so that's cool. And if you like Jason David Frank, you can go there in Pasadena, Texas. But either way, I just wanted to bring this up, and I know you guys can call me salty and be like, Matt, you weren't even there, why would you? I think it's just because I look at how much money I have in my bank account, and I think if I spent money on VIP tickets, on the hotel, and on flights, because I'm in New York, so I'd have to fly out to California, which is not cheap. Hotel in California, not cheap, especially trying to go to a con. I mean, that thing, those hotels will be packed and everything. And especially trying to get one anywhere near the convention center, I imagine they'd also be super duper packed. So trying to do all that, and then having to wait online, and then having, not being allowed to go back into the building. So if I did, for some reason, I was with 3 people, and I was like, you know what, let's go to the prom, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I can't go to that, It would just be so frustrating to then be told, but hey, don't worry, we might be coming to other towns as well. It's just like, okay, start off by doing good at your home base, right? Because I'm pretty sure they are in Anaheim, California every 2 years, I thought it was. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But still, it's just really frustrating because, again, I saw everyone's reactions live, while they were online, while they were, being kicked out of the building around 10:30 p.m. and not being let back in. It was just a complete shit show. And that's the thing. It's just really frustrating that it's you had to show off to, to mom and dad in this case being Hasbro, or it could be mom, dad. Either way, you had to show off to the parental units that came in to try to, who bought out the license to Power Rangers, and you just do that. And so I hope that everything goes well. Here's the thing too I want to mention. So some of you guys are probably like, Matt, you're being really mean and rude. Here's the thing. I hope that Power Morphicon Express does very well. I'm not saying I hope it doesn't do well. I'm just saying that with the track record that I'm pretty sure I've heard there's been spotty track records at different Power Morphicons, but specifically this year in particular, it's just Like, I really hope that everything goes well, because frankly, it just would be frustrating if this con didn't do well, specifically not just Power Morphicon, but also Power Morphicon Express, because it's a great way to bring, this on the road. All jokes aside, being serious here, it's a great way to bring this on the road and to have a Power Rangers convention in a town that might not have it, right? Or might not have it that often, or might not get as many actors as Power Morphicon did. There were a lot of actors, there were a lot of panels. So, I really hope it does well. I'm not trying to say that it shouldn't, I'm not trying to sit here and just show, don't go to it, don't support it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that they really got to get their act together, because this was a huge deal to me. Seeing people online saying, hey, I paid, hundreds of dollars, and this is what's going on right now. That's a lot of money to shell out to then be, screwed over at a Power Rangers convention, especially one that's as big as this one. So I do wish them the best, I really do, but I can't sit here and not call out some of the BS, especially when, I think it was the same weekend or a few days later, they then talked about Power Morphicon Express. Sorry guys, I just can't, I can't just say nothing about it.